I see June.
Well, so Rick, what happened? We're doing this in Zoom? I thought you said we had to do it in WebEx.
The WebEx doesn't work on my computer.
All right, so, okay. Works for me.
Forum, so I'll call the meeting to order. The rules for meetings changed last weekend. We could meet in person. We would need a bigger room. And if by chance we had more than 25 people in attendance, we would have to stop the meeting and cancel it and then go and repost it and have a virtual meeting. Plus, even if you meet in person, you got to have virtual capabilities. So rather than deal with all that, I just figured we'd do a virtual meeting. So
I can only see 5 people, but that's okay.
there's an arrow bar. If you look on the right, you can scroll up and down and see all the participants. Or down at the bottom, you can see the participants that we click on.
Rick, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
You are?
Clicking just stopped.
Can you hear me now?
June and Brendan Cowley and
Yes.
That
yes,
is
that's better.
perfect.
Yeah, that's much better.
All right.
I still can't see the others, but that's okay.
Keith isn't on, is he?
He is not, no.
Yeah, they were supposed to submit the sustainable CT certification in August. I don't know whether they did. If they did, eventually it'll show up on the sustainable CT with everything that they submitted and all the paperwork and everything. And I would anticipate, based on looking at North Stonington's last year's submittal, near the end of October. So hopefully they did that. And I guess the new person that took Jason Vincing's place is in charge of sustainable CT stuff. I'm trying to figure out.
What was that name you said? Person who took whose place?
Jason Vincent?
Oh, Jason's, okay.
That's good with the agenda, Rick. It's now very readable.
Okay. The next item is a letter of support for the Mystic River Boathouse grant.
Sorry, real fast. Did we approve January minutes?
Did I miss that?
Yes.
I just thought
Okay.
it was perfect, so we automatically did it.
Move that we accept the minutes from January.
I'll second.
Any comments? I'm trying to find them.
I guess my question would be, we left some things sort of hanging in January. Will we get a chance to discuss what happened to him? I agree with the minutes. I just don't know what happened afterwards.
Well, we can talk about them now. As far as the task force, we didn't really do anything. The budget process went through. The selectmen were pushing, the first selectman was pushing strongly to get money for climate change and coastal resilience. But the finance board cut it down to 10,000 from her requested 100,000. So there's not a lot there.
Was there a rationale why they cut it down? I mean, I suppose it's COVID related, but you probably know more.
Well, no, that COVID wasn't around last year. It was just that
January? February?
well, it wasn't real. It didn't really happen until March. You know, and I mean, near the end of the budget process, probably. But it's just a matter of the some of the members of the finance board. One of them said, "Well, climate change isn't happening this year, so we don't need to give them any money." But the other things, that the main driver was that they wanted to get the $10 million for the sewer bonding passed, and so they were cutting back on everything. And they
Rick,
did.
if I may, I can also shed a little bit of light.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So by the time the budget came around, there were no in-person referendums. So the governor allowed, executive branches of the towns to vote in the budget. So since we did not have taxpayer participation, we wanted to have a budget that had a 0 increase from prior year. So the $10,000, it was level funded. So now there's, I think, $20,000 in that line item. So it wasn't cut completely, but it was really, I mean, there were cuts throughout the entire budget, not just the climate change task force. There was everything. So that was really the overall reason.
Right.
So June, if I can ask, what would it take then to increase the climate change task force budget?
Is that Susan? I can't see.
Well, I'll speak first.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the comments was last year that they want more information on how the town would spend the money. And, you know, at the time, they didn't have the staff people didn't have a real good feeling as to what grants they would apply for. It also takes, I mean, if a number of people show up to budget meetings and request it, the more people that show up, the more attention it's going to get. At the finance meeting that they decided on the SIP budget, I was there and Danielle was there, and that was it. And it was late at night, and they had to get out of the building by 11 o'clock. So we had about 2 minutes to speak. And so that was it.
So what I'm taking away from that as lessons learned is that one thing is maybe the climate change task force has to be more proactive in pushing for certain projects. Like we have to get our act together. Is that right? And the second thing is that if we had a list of priorities, then we'd better attend those budget meetings.
I think attending the budget meetings is the most important. It's pretty much, I mean, the planning department and the first selectman will have to decide what their priorities are as far as coastal resilience and things like that. It's not really something that we don't have any statutory authority to make any decisions on that. We can recommend things, which is what I'm doing in this letter that we'll get to in a little bit. But you know, it's very few people attend any meetings and speak out on anything in town. And you know, if you want change, you know, people are going to have to step up and start making a little noise.
May I add?
Yep.
Okay, so this is similar to the Board of Finance a couple years ago started a library subcommittee just to learn more about the purpose of the libraries in town, where, you know, the thought was everybody's going to digital, books are obsolete, we don't need libraries anymore. And instead, there was an increased commitment to keep the libraries funded and understanding what the how vital they are to our community. So I think maybe asking, it would be probably a good idea to have a subcommittee inside the Board of Finance to be involved with the climate change task force, so that information can get to the Board of Finance. Whatever the composition of the Board of Finance is at any point in time, you know, it changes every couple of years. So that might be something that's worthwhile doing to get them involved in this. So to get them involved in the conversation.
So we invite somebody? How do we do that, Jen?
I mean, I could talk to the chair, or Rick can send an invitation out to the chair of the Board of Finance. And then, you know, I can reiterate how important it is that I think if the Board of Finance needs to be involved in the conversations and some of the, you know, the grants, the projects, why the climate change task force thinks particular projects have a particular priority over another, and this is what the cost is going to be. Just awareness. So, I mean, we don't know what it is, but, you know, it's just that level of awareness. I mean, and everybody's volunteers, right? So everybody has their day jobs, and they have got, you know, kids and different things. So, so just having them more involved, I think, would be a big plus. So, and Rick,
Okay.
perhaps your role as chair, reaching out to the chair of the Board of Finance would be a start.
All right. Is there anything else on these minutes you wanted to talk about? I don't know whether the Yukon students ever did anything with the Masons Island Causeway. And we don't know, I don't think we have any updates on the seaport. So that's that. Mystic River Boathouse. This is a letter that First Selectman asked us. She asked a lot of boards to support. They're going for a brownfield grant, and it's just letters of recommendation. Typically, grants get as many as they can. The only part of this that I actually wrote was the middle paragraph. The rest was a form that she sent out. And so it doesn't, I don't think it hurts us to send this in. I don't know what the rest of the book, what task force members feel on this.
Actually, I thought the letter was just fine. I
Okay.
thought it was actually well done. And also, when we're done with this topic, we need to go back and approve the minutes. We didn't approve them. We segued into a
Okay.
conversation.
All right. Let's finish with this first. So do I have a motion to send this to Danielle?
Also,
Motion.
I'll move, well, either way.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. We'll send that tomorrow. A motion to approve the minutes of the January 16th meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Second? Got
Second.
that? Okay. Any more further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passes. Item 5, this is something I dreamt up in my free COVID moments. I was reading the town charter, and supposedly every board is supposed to send written communications to the first selectman about what they've been doing and how they're doing budget-wise. And so I'm not sure whether we actually are required to do this because we're not named in the town charter as a official committee. But I figured since the budget cycle is starting in November again, we can at least bring some attention to things that we might like to see take place. And these are just things that I came up with. The first bullet kind of mimics what the town of Coventry, Rhode Island did. Their board of selectmen took it on themselves to do a similar calculation, and then they're sending a $5 million bonding question to their voters in November. And it just seems like until we get a handle on, until the town gets a handle on, you know, what they have to spend, you really don't know what kind of priorities that there are. When I was doing the solar map, I found it a little shocking that I couldn't find a town building with a solar panel on it. It seems like that would be something that would be fairly easy to do and would start saving the town money. Even the new schools, I'm not sure why they didn't put solar on the new schools. Maybe they don't need it, but I don't know how they're heating in schools, but it seems they've got a lot of flat roofs that they could put solar panels on.
Excuse me, Rick?
Yeah.
Before we vote on this one, could we do other town activities? Because there may be something in the other towns that you might want to add. I don't know if you would, but
Yeah.
it might be worth thinking about.
All right. The next item was trees and power line. If you drive around town, there's just a lot of hazardous trees. And the Yukon Forestry has a Stormwise program where they, it's a little bit more aggressive management, and they take out healthy trees in order to make more healthy trees less likely to fall down. So it's basically a thinning along the roadside. They've tried some demo areas, and you know, you probably would do this with voluntary cooperation from landowners. But it is, you know, if they want to have less power outages, they're going to have to do something about the trees. And
I think of the last storm, the power company came around and offered to do it for free. I think it was free, maybe not, but I
well,
think
the power company will do anything around the lines within their approved
no, I see. Okay.
area, which is only 8 feet on either side, 15 feet above and 10 feet below. They can't cut anything else outside of that zone, and that's regulated by Pura. So, you know, you drive down the road and, you know, you see this huge dead tree that is 10 feet inside the power line, and they can't touch it because it's not in their zone. And that's really then the town responsibility, but the town doesn't do a lot of tree cutting.
Hey, Rick, I just wanted to bring up a point about that. It occurred to me that that initiative sounds at first glance to be contradictory to the initiative we talked about previously of, you know, getting or encouraging homeowners to plant and the town to plant more trees in order to reduce the effect of, you know, sudden stormwater floods and things like that. And I just wanted to point that out so that if we do future communications about, you know, efforts to plant trees, that maybe we should include information about not planting them near power lines so that we can help with both things at once.
Yeah, I believe that's part of the Stormwise program.
Okay.
And also the last sentence here talks about increasing the tree planting budget. What some towns have done is if they cut down a tree near a power line, they'll plant a tree anywhere on a person's property to replace it. And
Yeah, I saw that. That's great.
Doesn't have to be in the right of way.
Yeah, I think by emphasizing that, especially, we could do, you know, we talked about that being a major impact in downtown Mystic and the loss of tree cover in areas like downtown Mystic and Pawcatuck. And so emphasizing that point, I think, would be really helpful. Just not the second, I think the letter is awesome and all of that. I just, in general, to plant that in the brains.
Well, you know, we moved here from Maryland in Silver Spring where they had a major, you know, like we had way more power outages in here, and they cut down 1 million trees and we lost the power outages. That ended, but we also lost 1 million trees. I mean, it was really noticeable, the effect. So for me, if they could get away with trimming around the power lines, which in some places around here, you see they've masterfully trimmed through the power lines rather than getting, especially in a place like Mystic, which needs tree cover. I realize that out in the country areas that you could probably get away with it, but I'd be careful about that one. Because a little tree takes a long time to replace the biomass and the capacity for oxygen
Well, yeah,
generation. That's a big tree.
yeah, and you know, it's a trade-off of whether you want power outages or whether you want, you know, big trees around power lines. You know,
Over by the seaport, they've certainly cut around the power lines, I guess to preserve the look or the feel of that area.
Well, there is a middle ground. I mean, I think, Rick, you do state in your bullet that the removal of hazardous and dead trees, it doesn't have to be clear cut to be effective. I mean, there's a lot of dead trees and branches that really need to go, short of cutting down everything. So moderation.
yeah, and I think that's all part of the program, and it would be up to the tree wardens and the Department of Public Works, you know, if they adopted this type of thing, whether they, you know, which trees to cut down, and they would work with the property owners, and you know, but just when you drive around town, there's just more power outages in our future. The next bullet, SIP budget. To the Board of Selectmen's credit, they did put a priority rating A, which is good. This is the $10,000 line item. Whatever dollar amount they're comfortable with, I put in 500,000 just to get their attention. But you know, I have no, I mean, I know that's not going to get funded at $500,000. But you know, if they wanted to do, and it's been in the hazardous mitigation plan for forever, an engineering study on the Masons Island Causeway, and that's been the #1 priority. I figure that engineering study is probably going to cost $500,000-$600,000 to get done, and what this would be funding would cover would be matching contributions for the grant money. So if we can get a grant for $300,000, then we'd have to come up with $300,000. And these are just some of the grants that are available that we don't go after. We did go after, Keith did go after a National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant for green infrastructure for, it was either the voting hall parcel in downtown Mystic, or on the side of the town hall that we're going to put in some type of green infrastructure thing. I'm not sure which one he actually applied for. EV charging stations. We've only got 3, and for a tourist town, that doesn't seem like enough. And if the town is going to go towards swapping out hybrid cars for 100% EV, then they would need some charging stations like a town hall and various other places. Some towns manage to get these put in at no cost to the town, depending on the utility. So that might be, it might not be a monetary item, but you know, if they want to promote getting off of fossil fuels, we're going to need more EV stations in town. In this next item, I think we need someone in town hall that can ask questions on all these programs that are available for, and some of them the town hasn't signed up for, like CPACE. that's one that could be a sustainable CT item. And that's promote businesses to do energy checks and find out how they can reduce their energy consumption. Soul Smart is another sustainable CT thing. It's a solar program. And the rest of these I think we've heard of. To me, I mean, if they need someone that's a go-to person, in my opinion. And then this last item, we talked about this about a year ago. It's an act that allows the Board of Finance to put money in a special account for climate change and coastal resiliency, and it allows the town treasurer to invest it at a little higher interest rate or however they invest the money. Brantford did it 2 years ago. They put $1 million into it, and then they're putting in, I think, $300,000 a year to build up a funding that can be used for climate change and coastal resiliency. And to me, it's a no-brainer because they really, there's no drawback to it. They can always get the money back out of it, out of the fund if they need it for something else. So it just allows them to invest it in a little bit better way, and then the bonding ratings bonding rating companies will see that, you know, Stonington is putting money aside for future climate issues. So it's suggested that we don't approve this yet until we go through a next item on the agenda.
I have a suggestion. Do you want me to wait until we go through the next agenda item?
You can bring it up now if you want.
Okay, it goes to bullet point. Well, first of all, thank you, Rick. This is like a really positive thing that we can aim at and really helps us because you know a whole lot about these programs and plans. So I think it's great. But going back to number one was about the solar panel issues. And I was wondering if we could go even a step further about solar panels. And I wonder if we have any power to recommend to planning and zoning that they start pushing toward any new construction being green construction or passive energy construction. I know that last night, I believe they voted to approve that new mixed income housing in Pawcatuck, which whatever we think about that is neither here nor there, but that would be a perfect place for a green building, you know, with plantings on the roof and ways to recycle the water. And I think you've alluded to it in other places, fixes for the parking lot that they didn't consider. So can we go one step further than solar and start asking if we can get, this would be a perfect town to begin to do this.
On the project last night, because it's an affordable housing project, it pretty much can ignore all the zoning regulations. Even if it had, you know, green stuff in it, they could just say, no, we're not, you know, we don't feel like doing it.
Yeah, I understand that.
And as far as zoning regulations, supposedly, and it's been on the back burner for a couple of years, they were going to do a total rewrite of the zoning regulations, and keeps on mentioning that, and it's in the plan of conservation and development as an item. So I mean, if we wanted to propose it to the zoning commission, we would pretty much actually have to rewrite the regulations, and that's not something that we're really qualified to do. I believe that they're looking to hire a consultant to redo the zoning things, and then when that
But-
process happens, that would be the time to provide input as far as green buildings and things like that.
But as long as, okay, is somebody else talking?
This is James Strunk. I just wanted to make a comment, if I may. I know that there's, again, it's the budget. There wasn't money in the budget to hire the consultant to redo the zoning regulations. There are so many amendments and addendums that is now becoming a little bit of a challenge for developers to go through everything. And the solar panels regulations are from 1984, and they actually forbid solar panels on the north side of the structure on the property. So there are some locations that can have like solar fields, but it happens to be on the north side of the house. It can't be done. So they know, planning and zoning knows that they have to do something with the regulations. And I think that's a priority, and focusing on solar. And you know, the green aspect, building green would be, they haven't really talked about that, but that would be something that this committee could ask them to do. But redoing the regulations is a priority.
So my suggestion would be simply to include a note that, you know, Stonington, Connecticut would be a wonderful place to start doing green buildings with all the things that goes into, you know, how that helps the watershed, increases the carbon oxygen exchange. They look better. People are happier in green buildings. It's better for the environment. Ultimately, they're cheaper. It's about a 5% extra cost. It's happening all over the country. This would be perfect for it. So a bullet that just says, you know, upcoming, assuming that planning and zoning will rewrite these regulations, can we ask them to front and center to consider green building planning?
Yeah, I think I could put in a bullet that references the item in the POCD and say that we're strongly in favor of green, whatever the right wording is, green building code changes, or, you know, promoting green infrastructure type thing. Okay. Julia mentioned, I believe it was after the last meeting, looking into what other towns can do or are doing. These are some the ones that I found. Vernon's installing solar panels at 3 schools and police station. It's no cost to the town. So, you know, there are ways to do solar that won't cost the taxpayers anything. Over in Rhode Island, they're doing a similar type of thing, ground mount canopies over parking lots, but Rhode Island has a state incentive to do that. Item C, I mentioned earlier, the city council's doing a bonding to promote different things. Coventry achieved gold Soul Smart status. And then this EPA database is fairly interesting, though it's not totally up to date. But if you go to this database, you can search on any town in New England, and you can search on small towns like the size of Stonington, or all towns in Connecticut the size of Stonington, and then it brings you to you can click on a link, and it'll bring up what the towns are doing. In Stonington's case, the POCD was in there. A couple of earlier studies from the Nature Conservancy were in there. The Coastal Resiliency Plan wasn't in there, and the Conway school plans weren't in there. So I sent an email off to them, but I never got a reply saying, well, we've got these other plans, and you know, load them in there. So It could be a useful database, but as with a lot of databases, it's not updated regularly. I think they might do it once a year. Julia?
Yes, well, I looked at 5 towns to see what they were doing with respect to climate change. And I found that 3 of them were doing very little, if anything, but 2, which were Groton and Middletown, were doing some very interesting things. And they tie into what we were just talking about. Groton actually has 2 groups advising on climate change issues. It's the Resiliency and Sustainability Group, which is similar to our task force, also without a budget. And it advises the town council. But the second group is a registered lobbying group, so it can receive donations and get money, and it's called Conservation Advocates. And on many issues, they support the resiliency group. And together they've had some successes in the climate change area. For example, they did their plastic bag ban, and there's another one. Oh, there was a place in town that the town wanted for a school, but it was actually a reserved open space area. And so they worked with the town to find another place that could be dedicated open space in perpetuity. So that worked out very well for them. But their current goals, and this is interesting from what we were just talking about, is number 1, to get the building code changed so that new houses are required to be 100% energy efficient by a given deadline. And the second, and this is a very high priority goal for them, and that's convincing the town to hire a person to be responsible for looking into available federal and state grants and coordinating climate change mitigation efforts among the various town entities, such as the planners and the people who are on the ground actually designing the buildings. So I thought that was important. But what I found was particularly interesting, and I've tried to keep this to under 3 minutes because it looked like a very long agenda, but Groton's aspirations are in several ways Middletown's reality. And Middletown, in addition to what Rick noted in one letter attachment about what they've recently done, has hired a part-time energy coordinator who is a member of their clean energy task force. And he's paid to look at the town's energy use across a variety of town agencies. First, he says that by looking at energy consumption and energy coordination, he's been able to save the town many tens of thousands of dollars. One small example was by putting in LED lights in the town lamps. It will save at some point around $400,000. And also, number 2, and I think this is important to us because there was that memo that you sent from the town where they were very interested in getting designations from Sustainable Connecticut, and they were going to focus on that this year. Middletown has earned both the silver and then the next year the bronze designations from Sustainable Connecticut under this fellow working on it. So it looks like a very good example of a town meeting climate change goals and saving more money by spending some of it to hire a part-time coordinator. And this ties in with what you advised, Rick, about advocating having the town use paid staff to help deal with climate change issues. I wonder if we couldn't broaden it slightly to ask that we have someone who can look at grants and then help the town get those grants. And so then we can, have the funds available for matching funds. The town would be more likely to allocate those funds. But
I believe
I
that
thought it was an excellent letter. By the way, it was an excellent letter. I just thought we maybe could broaden it to encompass what those 2 towns are doing in some way.
I believe that the new employee that took Jason Vince's place, Susan Cullen, I think is her name. I believe one of her job descriptions is to focus more on grants. And I believe she is in fact actually doing that. It's a little difficult for us to compare our Stonington to Middletown because they have a lot bigger tax base and a lot bigger budget.
Right.
Stonington is not going to hire a separate person to do climate change stuff. They need, last year they needed a new person in the finance department, and that person didn't make it through the budget process. So, you know, you kind of have to look at the reality of, you know, how much money Stonington has available. As far as Groton,
or can I say something?
mhm,
Can I say something?
yeah.
I'm Janice Mink, and I live at 18 William Street, and I just dialed in a little bit late. I was stuck on the beach in the dark. But instead of having a person hired to do this, which I think that would be great if you could get that, but every single person in every single capacity, a financial person, all of these people need to be on such a level of education that they realize that climate change is the biggest challenge for every single nerve, molecule, fiber of Stonington.
Yeah, and I think,
Every
I'm
single
not sure when you came in, but, you know,
becomes an advocate for that.
I'm not sure when you came in.
I came in at 7:24.
Well, I'm not sure where we were in the discussion, but we're proposing to send a letter to the selectmen. And one of the bullets was to have the first selectman have all the department heads and staff people go through and categorize how to get off of fossil fuels and things and figure out the cost. So I think activities such as that are kind of doing what you're suggesting. They would you know, have to do a little bit of research and figure out how to do these things.
Rick, I'd also like to add, this is Dennis Unitas here. I'd also like to add that we did discuss having the Board of Finance folks involved in the in our meetings or in making an invitation to them. And I think that sort of thing, the educating the Board of Finance as to the fact that we exist and that we have some things that that are definitely important to them that are going on, is one of those education things that we have to move forward with. So I think that has been mentioned at this point already. So you may have missed it, ma'am, but we have been talking about it.
Good.
And getting back to Julia's thing, Groton, did you look and see how recent those actions were? Because when I looked at their website, their official committee on climate change hadn't met for like a year and a half. I know the advocacy group that is separate from the town does meet, but I'm not really sure, you know, if Groton is taking an active role right now in their moving forward with climate change. I know they were one of the original people that the Nature Conservancy was working with back in, you know, years ago, but then that that study that they did just sat on the shelf.
Well, I did ask that, and they actually don't meet at all in the summer, but they meet monthly other times, and sometimes even more frequently than that, according to the person who leads the group.
Okay.
So I don't know. I can tell them about their website, but.
Well, I just looked at the minutes. I mean, if there aren't any minutes for the meeting, then they're not meeting. So
that's interesting, because what I heard from him was that they meet every month after the summer's over. So I'll find out.
It could be. They could be just delinquent on their minutes.
That could be too. I'll find out, Rick. I'll let you know.
All right. So as far as the letter, I think the only real bullet I had to add was about the zoning updates. Anything else? Okay. Do you want me to revise the letter before I send it to you guys for approval before I send it out, or you just want me to put wording in there and send it to Danielle?
I'm okay with you just putting that wording in and sending it to Danielle. I don't know if anybody else feels differently.
No, I agree. I think that's a great plan. Thanks so much for putting it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should, Rick.
Okay, can I have a motion to send this to the Board of Selectmen with the suggested one modification?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, I'll do that and send it out within the next couple days. The Governor's Council on Climate Change, GC3. I don't know if any of you have been paying attention to what they're doing, but they right now are starting the 22nd and going through October 21st. There'll be a series of webinars and draft reports will be posted on their website that are eventually leading up to the large report that's going to the governor in January 2021. If you have a chance, and there are video recordings of their meetings, if you can't go live to them, there's a lot of people putting in a lot of hours on this, and there's a lot of good information. I know the Forest Task Force, which is spearheaded by Connecticut Forest and Park, put out their draft report a couple days ago. It's on their website, and these are really in-depth reports with a lot of information and a lot of good suggestions as far as things that the state should be doing. So if you have an interest and have time, you know, even if you just comment saying that you looked at the report and you thought it was a good job and you don't have any further changes, I'm sure they'd appreciate that input. Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management. This is something that Stonington joined. There's not a lot of details yet, but it's going to improve recycling, reuse, organic collection, and things like that. So that's a positive thing that we signed up for. Solar. I sent you a copy of the solar map that I made. I was just curious to see how much solar we had in the town. Maybe I can bring it up. I don't know if it's gonna work. Can you see that map or not?
No.
No?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Rick, when you do share screen, if you click the share screen button, it lets you choose which window to share. I think right now you've got us in that PDF.
I may not ever get back to that if I stop. So, stop.
Oh, there's Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay.
Share screen.
Lindsay, I just saw an email from you.
Whoa.
Oh, there's Janice.
I mean, I see only a Zoom screen now. Oh, there we are.
There's some of you.
So this is just looking at the most recent aerial photos and picking which properties had solar panels on them, and plus a few that I saw driving around that are too new for the map. While it looks like there's a lot, that's only like 310 docks out of 11,000 Eversource customers. So while individuals are doing a lot, you know, it's not nearly enough to put a dent in the emissions. But that brings me to the next item, and this is something we can actually do. Save the Sound has an interesting website on shared solar. This is a new program in Connecticut. The two utility companies just got fined for delaying on it. But what it amounts to is that people and businesses that rent or have rooftops that are shaded out, they can sign up, they can express an interest in doing a shared solar, joining a shared solar network. And how it works is that if the town gets enough people that want to do it, then you contact one of the solar contractors, and if they have space available on their in their solar field, you go about signing up for it. And what it amounts to is about a 10% reduction in their electric bill. The solar panels don't have to be in Stonington. They can be anywhere in Eversource's network of towns. So what Save the Sound is proposing is that towns do a little survey or whatever and figure out if there's enough interest in town to proceed with going forward. So, I mean, I could develop a little sign up form and post it to the various forums on Facebook, and the town, maybe the town would post it on their web page as well, their Facebook page as well, and just, you know, develop a list of who would be interested in doing this if it was available. It would take probably a couple years before it would go into effect, but it is a way for people that want to participate in solar but can't do it to do it. And there's all sorts of regulations in the law. Certain percentage of the people have to be low income, certain percentage have to be middle income, and then there's a couple other things as well, but those are details that they would work out if they actually went forward with the program. So do you think that's something we should do?
Can't hurt.
Susan, I think you're muted there. So you're trying to talk.
Trying to unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, I don't know what goes on. Anyway, do you think that just posting it on forums is going to really reach out to enough people to get a real representation, or would there have to be some other kind of a mailing to make it widespread enough to pick up the right numbers?
Well, I mean, I think we could try the forums first and see what kind of response we get. We don't have any budget to do a mailing.
No, I know.
They might be able to put something in the next quarterly is that a quarterly letter we get in the mail from Stonington? They might be able to put something in there and put a link to the database. But then I know of no other way.
Rick, there's also the First Selectman's blog. Those letters go out by email too. So that's another way to do it as well.
Oh, I don't get that, so I don't know.
You have to sign up for it.
Okay.
Well, I'm just concerned that we make the effort and we get like such a lackluster performance or response. I suppose if it's a low-level task and there's a low-level response, there isn't a lot invested, but I'm trying to think of what we could do to get a reasonable kind of a response. Waiting for people to self-select and find these things could take a while.
Yeah.
And potentially, if we felt that we weren't getting the response that we needed, and I don't know what the response is that we need, but we could just do some grassroots sending out of emails to friends, neighbors, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, if you're up for it, go for it.
It shouldn't be that hard to do. So,
You know what would help me, Rick? I was listening really carefully, but I don't quite understand what it is. So either I go to the website and figure out it for myself, or maybe you could, or somebody could write, even could
Sounds like-
write
yeah.
a paragraph that would actually explain it.
well, there'll be a bit of writing on the posting that goes out, but basically, if your house is shaded by trees and you wanted to participate in solar, you sign up for this, and if the town gets enough people, then they develop a shared solar program, and you would get 10%, roughly 10% off on your
Right.
electricity bill.
That suggests, like one of those thermometer things, like we're almost there, whatever that amount is. And you know what I mean? Like something.
Well, we don't know. We don't know how much the contractor, how many people, how many signups they would need to participate.
That's the kind of information that would be really helpful.
Yeah, well,
I'm raising
that wasn't available on their website. But Janice,
we have solar panels on our house, and you save more than 10% if you have solar panels. So,
well, you do if you have them on your own house,
yes,
but in a shared solar program,
yes.
I
I have them on my own house, but I mean, only saving 10%. I'm assuming there's some kind of buy-in for the people who sign up, like they have to give a certain amount of money, or they donate, or there's some kind of buy-in, obviously. And if Save the Sound hires a contractor, the contractor's making a little money on this too.
The contractor's making more money than probably than what they do on your solar panels,
Yeah.
if you rent your panels, but
We bought them.
yeah, but it's it's not supposed to be identical to installing solar on your own house. It's just a way to have people participate in it and get a reduction in their electric bill.
I mean, I think it's a genius idea.
There's like a 4-minute video on the Save the Sound website that might explain it a little bit better. But
Can I make a suggestion?
pardon?
Yeah, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
So I know the Department of Human Services prints a biannual booklet of things that are happening, and they're the ones that the Department of Human Services coordinates with other not-for-profits for people who have problems with their electric bills, and our electric bills are going up. They might be the place to really get the word out to the entire community. So that might be something to just share with them.
Okay.
With Leanne Theodore.
Yep.
Rick, I had a question about the wording on that. Just by the way that you worded it now, and I know you'll probably write more clearly when you explain it, but if I was to say that I'm interested, do I have to say that I have do I have to have a shaded roof in order to say that I'm interested? What if I don't know how shaded my roof is? It's partially shaded, do you have to self-identify as having a shaded roof, or can you be interested regardless?
No, if your house is capable of having its own solar, you're not eligible. So, I mean, you would have to make that determination. And then, if it went to an actual program, when it comes for time for sign up, they would determine who's eligible and who's not.
So someone's going to come to our house and make that assessment?
I don't know whether they'll come to your house or whether they'll just look at an aerial photograph and say yes or no. I mean, a lot of the stuff they can do
But
electronically.
somebody will actually look at each participant. Would be.
I would think so, but that's details that would come later.
Okay.
So I just jumped on the website real quick, and one of the phrases they say is shared solar allows any electricity customer to get a portion of the power produced by a large solar array with the benefits automatically credited to their bill or without having them install solar panels. So according to the website, it seems like it's open to anybody who currently has electricity.
I think if you go in deeper, you'll get to the.
Sign the petition? You want me to
Oh.
sign the petition for 10 people?
No,
That's what you need?
you'll get to all the regulations that spell out what the actual statute says. But
I'm just wondering, maybe we don't want to discourage people by suggesting that the roof might not be shaded enough. Right? I mean, what's the goal? Do we want to get the most people possible who are interested and parse that out later, or I don't know.
I was planning on just stealing stuff from the Save the Sound website and using their wording and see whether there's interest.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, they have an entire toolkit on their website.
Yeah. All right, next item, Connecticut Siting Council. There's a solar panel application for Elmridge Golf Course. This is kind of like affordable housing. There's not a whole lot that the town can do to stop solar installations going in. The Planning and Zoning Commission did have a public hearing, and they sent a letter into the Siting Council, pretty much reiterating what some of the neighbors that spoke at the public hearing that are against it said. And the reply back from the contractor and the Siting Council pretty much put to bed all the issues that they brought up. So it's just there for information if you want to look at it. So this is between Stonington and North Stonington. This is the third or fourth major solar panel installation that's going on. There's one right on the border of North Stonington and Stonington, right over the border of Stonington. That's a really big one. And then there's a smaller one going in North Stonington. And then we had one approved on Togwonk Road. That was a smaller one.
This is the one where you look at 1410.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a 1410. It went right from 1409 to I think something like 1411.
Did you go to pending matters and then
Yeah.
did you scroll down to where the solar things are and you weren't, they're separated according to cell towers and solar things, and the solar are down
Maybe
below.
that's where I missed it. Yeah.
All right. Energize CT, it's just information. The home energy audits are currently free of charge. If anybody wants to do a home energy audit.
Could they do that for town buildings that we maybe could suggest?
I don't believe they do it for town building. They do it for business. I'm not sure if they do it for municipal. But I'm sure there's a program out there somewhere that does it for municipal. But I'm not sure this program does. And then Resilient Connecticut is doing a series of webinars and just put out different information. And then the PACE people sent me another email. If you recall, she was at our meeting like a year and a half ago. She just wants us to encourage people to sign up to get their newsletter. They have a ton of information on their website too. So it's a good resource. and I haven't dug into it far enough to know if there's anything that we could pick up on.
They've given out 6 million in grants so far, they say.
And then the TED Radio Hour is just a webcast or podcast that I found interesting that you might listen to if you want. Item 10, I sent this to Keith and Danielle. It's a current rounding for 2 of the grant things I mentioned in the letter. They require matching contributions. So I doubt whether the town is going to apply for it because we have no more matching funds to offer up in this year. But they are things, they're fairly substantial grants that you can get for mitigation planning and projects. Grassroots Fund. This was interesting. I don't know whether any of you know about this. If you have a group of a couple people, more than one, you can apply for a grant from these people, and they have 3 different categories, I believe, 3 or 4, and they're like $1,000 to $4,000 grants. If we were not a municipal board and we're just a group of people that were talking about climate change, we could get money from them. Same thing with the beautification committee. But because we're town, I don't believe that they fund town boards, but they do give out grants 3 or 4 times a year. So if you have a group and you want to do something, it could be a source of a couple $1,000s of funding.
Could we do it with a couple of people from the task force? I mean, could we join? And
Not as representing the task force. If you wanted to form,
not representing the task force, could we form a separate group?
If you wanted to form a separate group of friends or whoever you want to do it, you could probably do that. I got an email, and I'm not sure if she's still on. Helen Gross sent me an email inquiring as to whether we would be supportive or wanting to work with a group of younger folks to get the selectmen to have a climate change emergency declaration. And I wrote back to her pretty much saying that we would need a little bit more information as to what kind of language they wanted in the declaration. And Helen, do you want to speak at all about this?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So I know one of you was speaking earlier about Middletown, and I'm actually going to highlight them a little bit. They just recently passed a climate emergency themselves, and it was set into motion 9 days ago at this time. And at this point, they haven't done anything yet, but of course that's because it's so early since they have formally set it into motion. But the vote was unanimous, and it was drafted by their own climate change task force, but it was unanimously passed. Excuse me. So the resolution itself, if I may read a part of it, it says, "Be it further resolved that the Middletown Common Council will work with the mayor to establish an emergency mobilization effort that, with ongoing city funding and appropriate financial and regulatory assistance from state and federal authorities, will aim to end city-generated greenhouse gas emissions by or before December 31st, 2030, and to adopt techniques to safely reduce emitted carbon. And be it further resolved that the Common Council urges the mayor to direct all city department heads committees, and commissions to establish plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by both the city and the wider community, placing the highest priority on providing benefits of a clean energy economy to all community members on an equitable basis. So moreover, in the past 6 months, as I'm sure many of you have, I have seen more change in the world than I have in my entire life. I am quite young, but really it is a little bit jarring.
How old are you?
And after, I am 15.
Okay.
At this point, the research has been done to indicate that many of the largest effects of both climate change and the spread of COVID-19 are similar in the way that pollution can very easily damage people's lungs and make them at risk for COVID-19. And in the same way, pollution, of course, is contributing to global warming and the changing of our climate. So with that said, I think that we do have an opportunity in this way with this time that we're living in, because the world is changing so much. I think that we can choose to change along with it and get the ball rolling on a similar climate emergency declaration to what Middletown has done.
I have a question. Helen, if I may ask, are you talking to students in Stonington?
At this time, unfortunately, Stonington sees issues relating to climate change as political. So in that way, I am not technically allowed to speak about it, which is very unfortunate. But I have a couple of friends myself that I am working
What do you
with.
mean Stonington sees that? Do you mean the teachers or the principal?
Yeah, so it's just, I guess, yeah, issued by the principal. It's technically school policy that if I were to like want to put up a poster or something like that, I am not able to.
Well, I was getting at something a little different. First of all, thank you. I mean, I had no idea,
Thank
and
you.
you explained it very well. I'm just wondering if you are, if the power of your voice wouldn't be amplified if it would also include kids, young people who live in the town of Stonington.
Yep, absolutely, it would be. And I am part of a group of a few people that I'm very close with, one of which is here. Her name's Sarah. I believe she's going to speak in a couple minutes here. We, in the past, of course, when there weren't regulations for staying at home and being socially distant, held a couple climate emergency or Green New Deal protests in the way that we were advocating for one, of course. And we had meetings every couple days, and we really were working toward something like this. So.
Any other comments from task force members?
Also, thank you very much, Helen, for joining us and bringing that to our attention. I definitely think that from what we've been talking about, something like this might be not jarring, but might kind of put people in the right mind frame about how important it is to look at climate change and how it will have such a great impact. I know something that Danielle has said in the past is that she really wants to foster youth voices and making sure that youth are engaged in kind of this level of speak. So thank you for bringing it up to us, and we would love to see you continue to come to meetings and help us craft some phrasing that might work best for our town.
Yep, absolutely. I think that sounds amazing.
And we have something that a lot of other towns don't have, and that is that report, the sustainability report, I guess, that was put out by this group actually in 2017, was it? And that sort of declares that we have an emergency already. So we can rely on, and we can look back to that to say we are certainly worthy of having a climate emergency because we said we had one as early as 2017. And we can prove it with all the data we have. The towns I talked to did not have anything like our report.
And I think we're already a little bit ahead of the game because, I mean, for example, in Middletown, they really didn't have a sustainability team of their own until very close to when they had released that resolution. So the fact that we already have one formed is really like, we have a lot of opportunity with that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you presented your request to engage other students to the Board of Education at all?
I have not, but that
Okay.
definitely, I should do that. That would be a good idea.
Because
Yeah, I would not.
that's where policies are set, and I think they approve the curriculum. They all the policies about educating our students in town is set by the Board of Education. And you might want to just reach out to their chair and ask to be put on the next agenda item, and you could talk to them. You could present what you just presented to us to the Board of Education at their next meeting.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that. That for sure is something I
And
would.
then you could find a way to contact me at I'm June Strunk at the at my Stonington email, just jstrunk@stonington.ct.gov. If you aren't successful, then I will inquire.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Anybody else want to speak? Any members of the public?
Yeah.
Can't see anybody.
Sorry, is my audio on?
I can hear you.
Hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to agree with Helen, and also mention that New Haven did a climate emergency. It was actually about a year ago, as of a week ago. And I mean, they haven't really taken a ton of action since then, but pretty much immediately after the resolution passed, legislation stopped happening because of coronavirus. But they did also pass a climate emergency thanks to a youth action group. And there's also called for a climate task force. And then I also just wanted to talk about this town called Ashton Hayes, which I read about. Basically, it's a very small town in England. I think it has about 2,000 people, but they reduced their carbon emissions by 80% without legislation. They did community-based education and really just community initiatives. And I mean, there are certain ways in which that's geographically different from here, but if in terms of legislation, I don't know if there are certain blockades that could be an interesting approach to take, just citizen to citizen, because that has been successful in other places.
Okay, thank you. There's a couple ways that we could approach this. There's an alternate towards declaring, asking the selectmen to declare a climate emergency. There is a group of mayors that have signed a joint thing, and the first selectman may be able to sign on to something like that. I'm not sure Stonington qualifies because I don't know if we're a big enough town, but there's 200 or 300 mayors and leaders across the country of various cities and larger towns that have signed on to this. If we choose to go ahead with the emergency declaration, we could either have someone on a task force put it together, or we could have Helen and her group put it together and we endorse it. I'm not sure which would have more meaning. I mean, it might be if a group of young people put something together, it might be more forceful than our task force. But in any case, we would want to work together to come up with wording that is agreeable to, both groups. What's the task force members think?
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I think that you're right that it may have more of an impact if it's written and driven by, younger members of our community, and then endorsed by us. Although certainly we could be available to help with wording and make sure that everybody is on board with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I really think it is. It's a much more forceful way of doing it, and I think it has a lot of impact. So I would agree that would be the approach that I would suggest.
So I want to say two things. First of all, I think it's a good idea, and I wasn't quite clear about this, but does Helen and her group include young people who are residents of Stonington?
Yes. Myself and Sarah are both residents of Stonington.
Okay, that wasn't clear, so that's perfect. Okay, but the other thing is, I'd just like to remark that I agree it probably would be more forceful coming from a group of young people, but I also find it disturbing that there's a climate change task force that doesn't feel sufficiently empowered and connected to make such a recommendation itself. So I'm not arguing against it, Helen, at all. This is more speaking to the task force. And it seems like the more I learn, and I don't know a lot about Stonington town government, it's like this Rubik's Cube of committees, and they click into place, and sometimes they talk to each other and sometimes they don't. And it would just seem to me that a goal this year for the task force is to kind of collect, make some of those colors match up and some of those patterns fit together, because I think we're sort of off. We aren't fitting into the patterns, and I don't know how to do that in order to make this group more effective.
Well, in my view, part of the issue is that there's nothing in the state statute that authorizes a climate change task force in any town. And without having any kind of statutory authority, it's a little hard to go and tell other boards in town or to get their attention, because they have things that they're legally obligated to do, and if it's not in the law, then they're not really allowed to do it. And that's just the way that the state of Connecticut set up things. Like the Conservation Commission, they have certain things in described in state statutes that they're supposed to do. Same thing with planning and zoning. And Stonington has kind of pushed forward a lot of ad hoc groups that really have no basis in state law to do anything. So the ones listed in the town charter are the ones that are, officially authorized to do things.
I'm trying to raise my hand, but I don't know how to do it.
To speak.
Janice Mink.
Go ahead.
I love the fact that these girls have come in the meeting, and I'm also not a member of the task force at all. I'm just my first visit tonight. And I love the idea of the little English town where it was small enough for people to kind of talk to each other's consciousness and get something done. I mean, I kind of feel like that's what happened with our plastic ban, our plastic bag ban and plastic straw ban in Stonington that we worked on. It seemed to me like a lot of people were just behind that emotionally. And I think there are groups in town, people who bicycle, people who care about gardening. There are architects, there are sports groups who spend their time on the water, yacht clubs, and so on. So you have a lot of natural born allies who are directly impacted by the condition of the environment. And I bet you could get everybody together in the Mystic River Park and get them all on their bikes or on foot, and you could make them march up Route 1 from Mystic to Pawcatuck in a climate demonstration, which is like declaring a coastal emergency in Stonington. I mean, I bet you could do that. I bet those girls could do that. And I would come, and I bet a bunch of people would come. So I think sometimes the people get ahead of the government. I think, you know, all the committees and the lawyers and the laws and stuff. I mean, I went to a meeting last night virtually where I was told we have to build low-income housing into the water, basically on the Pawcatuck River. Well, it's going to be in the water in 10 years. We have to do that because we only have 5% affordable housing in Stonington. But it makes no sense to disband zoning laws for people who have less money, so they get worse housing just because they have less money, so we don't make anything stick anymore. And developers get to build, instead of 16 units, 82 units in the water on the Pawcatuck River. It makes no sense to me. And I came out publicly against it. So I think it's important that the girls don't let the principal tell them what to do. Follow June's advice, go to the Board of Ed, get yourself together, call the demonstration. We'll march from Mystic to Pawcatuck. We'll declare a climate emergency. You're absolutely right.
Okay, thank you. I listened to your comments in the tape, and I appreciate them. I made similar comments via written testimony. They don't read the written testimony into the record.
They should do that.
And it is a little crazy how they set up the affordable housing laws, but that's what, you know, the state legislators did. And that's why we're going to vote in November. And you know, you figure out who do you want to vote for that's going to, you know, do away with some of these crazy laws. But a lot of the, like, I believe the affordable housing probably came out of a bunch of lawsuits. And until the town, you know, makes it a priority to get 10% of our town properties in affordable housing, this could happen anywhere where there's sewer and water. And it doesn't matter whether sea level rise is going to take over the property or not. But yeah, I agree. And the general feeling I've gotten over the years is that the majority of the people in the town are concerned about climate change and sea level rise.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Getting them to come out like you did to speak at a board meeting is another problem. And people just don't show up. And until people show up, these boards that make the decisions are going to continue to do what they do. And you know, the EDC is doing a good job in town promoting their plan. In my opinion, it's not the right plan because they're promoting, you know, walkable villages, but all our villages are going to be affected by sea level rise. And they need to start thinking about what's going to happen when that happens.
Kayakable villages.
It could be.
Hey, Rick, can I respond to Sharon?
Yep.
I just wanted to, you know, as I understand it, our coastal resiliency plan was accepted as part of the POCD. And, you know, I think that that gave us a little bit more teeth than we used to have. However, you know, when I talk to people who are on various boards and commissions about that, most of them haven't read it.
True.
And if it's part of our POCD, first of all, they should be reading the POCD. And second of all, they should be reading any new part of the POCD. And I'm wondering if the selectmen would be able to help us in getting the word out to all of the boards and commissions that maybe there needs to be a townwide effort to, go back to the POCD, to read the coastal resiliency report that has now been added, and make sure that every board and commission is thinking about those plans when they're making decisions.
Well, we have a POCD implementation committee, and there's a member from every board or every important board on it. In fact, they're the only members on that board. The 5 citizen members, their terms expired, and right now there's 5 vacancies on that board for citizens from the community to volunteer to be on that board. So I'm not sure whether they're going to meet again, if it's only town employee or there's some town employees and some members of the board, elected people on the boards that are members of that board. But, there's a big gap in that board right now.
So I've counted 4 things that we've talked about tonight that at least link committees together, right? We said that we should get a Board of Finance person to come to these meetings. We said that we should speak to the new zoning laws and make sure that that gets in. Suggestion that if Helen didn't get a response from the Board of Education, that June could perhaps help out. And now we just hear a direct appeal to Danielle with this POCD. So there are ways of connecting these things up. So I just think I'm going back to that Rubik's Cube simile. I mean, I think if we just kept on focusing on how to link up these pieces, it would be at least one way to get people starting to pay more attention to this.
I agree, and I think that's a challenge that we've had since the beginning, is that when you look at the broad topic of climate change, there's so many different things that need to be done, and one of the things that Danielle had asked us to do is kind of focus on what are some of those things that we can tackle or have the town tackle. Unfortunately, I think that climate change is still contested, and it's contested among even those who are on our boards and committees within the town. And I think that what both Sarah and Helen have described, even making sure that the town understands that there is a youth voice, is a way that we can start that conversation. So I think that what they brought up today, and I just want to remind Helen and Sarah both that we have in the past, as a climate change task force, have had ad hoc members who are high school students. So you are definitely, Rick can talk about that a little more, but you are welcome to be more involved in this group to make sure that your voice is heard, maybe not as a voter yet, but as a member of the town. So I think that them putting their voice out there is a great way to start this conversation, to make the town committees who might not realize that we're here understand that we're here. That's my little 2 cents.
Who was that?
Who just spoke? Mary Ellen.
Oh, hi, Mary Ellen. Sorry, I can't see you. Yeah.
I only have 6 people at a time on my images. I don't know why.
I've only got 4.
Mm-hmm.
There's an arrow at the bottom. There's an arrow. You can scroll down and see the rest of them.
Or you can actually expand that block.
Or you can change to a gallery view at the top, or a grid, different views at the top.
Alternatively,
Grid video, is that it? The thumbnail video.
Rick, if you just stop screen sharing, I think it'll be easier for everybody if we want to see everybody as we're having discussions. Just seeing everybody while there's a screen share is a trick. Possible, but there we go.
There you are, Lindsay.
And then also up in the upper right-hand corner, you have the option for speaker view or gallery view. If you,
I have gallery.
Jason Hine wants to speak.
Oh, there you are.
Hello, everybody. How are you? So can you hear me okay?
Yep.
No, I just, I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you guys for meeting and doing all that you're doing. I'm just really grateful to be in a town that has a climate change task force. I feel like there's a team of really qualified people to do this. I'm here for 2 reasons: to echo what Helen and Sarah have very eloquently said, that we should seriously consider a climate emergency resolution. I am all for it. And if not that, I'm all for looking into it very seriously. I have a lot of friends who are also with me on this. I should say that I'm one of the founders and administrators of Rise Up Mystic. So we have a number of folks that are very interested in a climate emergency resolution. And I'd like to say something about what Sharon Lynch was saying about this Rubik's Cube effect, right? That we're overwhelmed with all these climate change related issues and departments and who's doing what, and it's really hard. All the more reason to have a climate change or a climate emergency resolution. You can prioritize all the things that you think are important, and you can bridge together all the departments, agencies, and personnel in a town and put them on this mission. And you can require that they work together on the issue of climate change. I think a climate emergency resolution gives you real teeth. I also took a lot of notes during tonight's meeting, and I noticed that, for example, you lacked funding. If you declare a climate emergency and form a resolution, you know, it gives you access to state funds that you might not otherwise have access to. And you can modify it and adapt it for your own town. So Stonington, as we all are residents here, being a coastal community, we need, I think, a resolution that fits our town. And so again, I really think what Helen and Sarah are onto is something that I'd like to latch on to. And I'd like to offer my support. If the task force wants to move forward on this, I would offer my wholehearted support and all the resources that I have at my disposal to make this happen. And my specific ask tonight, and then I'll be done. My specific ask, because we're, you know, it's a long meeting and I don't want it to go on any longer because of me, would be that maybe on the next agenda, if you would consider, again, I don't want to hijack anything, but if you would consider maybe please putting a climate change resolution as part of your next agenda. And perhaps I can offer you a scientist and a guest speaker who would be willing to share a toolkit on on the need, why you need a climate change emergency resolution, and how to go about getting one, and how to making it fit to your town so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's been done, as Helen and Sarah have said. It's been done by other towns, and they've shared that information. And so you can see two high school students have already accessed this information, and it's available to us. And it's so I would again echo the importance of the climate emergency resolution, and my ask is, as a member of the public, to make sure that it's on the next agenda, please. And again, I would offer a guest speaker, if you would like, to address the particulars, an expert who has helped some of these other cities create their own emergency resolutions, so that you can have a better understanding of how it works and if it's what you really need, if it's what we really need in our town. But that's what I want to say. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any of the members of the task force want to speak to that, or?
I can't hear you, Sharon.
Reading Sharon's lips, I think she just said yes. I think she made a motion.
Yes, good.
Okay.
Other members?
Agreed.
Yeah, I would agree. And
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Anybody not in agreement, I think you'd be.
The thing that we have to be careful of is that we're not supposed to be a political, have political affiliate, we're not supposed to be leaning one way or the other as far as politics. So, I mean, it has to be a fairly neutral presentation, I think.
If I may, the person that I'm considering offering, not considering offering, that I'm offering, if you'd like, if you need one, is a scientist. And he will only speak on the science behind and what an emergency resolution will help you address in terms of those needs. And that's it.
May I make a comment, Mr.
Yes.
Chair? Hi, Jason, June Strunk here. So I actually would like to have something before November because maybe the committee can form a subcommittee to do this. And the only reason why I say that is because if we do declare an emergency, a climate change emergency, we're in the very beginning of the next budget cycle. So it could have, we could start to have some positive impact with respect to funding if we could do something sooner than later, because the committee doesn't meet for another 2 months. But this is something that I think that could be worked on, and perhaps like finalization or approval for the committee, for the November meeting, but not like start on it in November. And if I would be willing to be on that subcommittee. I'm not a formal member of this task force. I'm just I just represent the Board of Selectmen. And Sharon, to your point, our Board of Selectmen's participation on all the boards and commissions is to attempt to break down all those silos, because there are a lot of them. And yeah, so that we have a Rubik's Cube that all the colors line up, to use your analogy. So, but I would be willing to do this. It's just a suggestion that I would like to do something perhaps more formalized that we could agree on perhaps by November.
When we moved to just meeting every other month, it was with the understanding that if we had reason to meet more frequently, that we would.
Okay.
And I would say that could be a reason to meet again in a month, rather than in 2 months, if everyone was available.
Well, the other alternative is to declare a special meeting.
Well, they're all special meetings.
All special.
We're all special.
So,
Nothing
Yeah.
unspecial about this group.
well, the thing is with the special meeting is like we can't add anything to the agenda tonight. So we can have a special meeting. It would be, and because we're meeting virtually, we don't have to worry about meeting room space. We could, and we don't really have to worry about the day. But if we were have one in October following our typical schedule, it'd be October 15th.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm a little confused about who is drawing up the resolution. Is it June and other people who want to be on that group?
We haven't decided that yet.
Yeah,
Right.
that's okay. That's why I don't know what it is.
So we could have a special meeting with the only item agenda would be this declaration,
Mhm.
and work on it then.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it sounds good.
If Helen and her team wants to put a draft together or send us what the one she was reading from, it might be a good starting point to have something. And if Jason, you want to arrange to have your speaker, if he is available on the 15th, if you can send me the guy's name so I can add him to the agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds amazing.
That's very good.
And echoing June's comment, this is the first time that I know of that the Board of Selectmen have taken the initiative to have a select person attend all the different board meetings. So that's really a step forward. That's never happened before that I can recall. Okay, I think we can wrap this up pretty quick here. Items in the news.
Rick,
Yep.
I think Mauro is here and wanted to speak as well as a member of the public.
Oh, okay. I didn't see any hand raised or anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rick. I apologize. I don't know if you all have spent so much time on Zoom, you get tired of seeing your own face, so I had my video off. But thank you, Lindsay, for bringing the attention to me. I just wanted to toss in, my name's Mauro. I'm Janice, I might be your neighbor. I'm over at 2 William Street.
Oh,
But I also wanted to throw out that I am a member of the Yale Center on Climate Change and Health. I work there, that's my employer. And we recently released, if anybody's interested, in a light 100-page reading of the effects of climate change on health for residents of Connecticut, hot off the presses 2 days ago. I'm happy to put that in the chat box along with my contact information if anybody finds that it's useful for themselves, for the task force, or for anything that they're working on. I'm here to answer questions about any of that, but I just wanted to make that known. And that's my piece. Thank you so much for the time.
Okay. Yeah, Lindsay sent the report to the members of the task force. You can put it in the chat box for the people that don't get the emails from the task force.
Groton has one person who's dedicated just to looking at health effects, and that's, I guess, Victor Lagra. But I can send him that too. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julia.
Okay, items in the news. They're just endless items in the news, so I tried to limit it. The first one is just what you probably all realize, New England's getting hotter, faster, quicker than other parts of the country. And then the second one just came out the other day, which is a pretty big deal in the business world because it's the first time a government agency has issued a report on climate-related financial risk. And I'm surprised that they were able to get that report out, honestly. The New England Climate Center, it's on there every month. It's update came out today. Most of Rhode Island and part of Connecticut is under a severe drought. The high tide bulletin, I'll just throw that in there for information. The next 3 months, the high tide around the lunar cycles are especially high compared to what we've experienced the rest of the year. So be on the lookout. If you live in a low-lying area, you might want to be careful where you park your car. Meeting schedule for 2021. This is the same pattern that we followed in the past. Do I have a motion to set those dates?
I move we accept those dates as our meeting schedule for the next year for 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
hi.
All right. Any objections? Passes. Any further comments from anybody?
I just have there's the meeting, I think the meeting, it's not just the dates, it's also the location. So I can't see I can't see the agenda right now. I know you had the dates listed, but do you have is the location going to be the same?
Well, we'll probably list it as the same,
okay.
depending on how long COVID goes. If we are allowed to have open meeting, physical meetings, we may have to find and COVID's still around, we may have to find a larger meeting room, though there aren't that many larger meeting rooms available.
Right, the only one is at the new central office, the former Pawtucket Middle School, and they haven't wanted that space contaminated. It's a very large meeting room.
Yeah.
So if you
could
put that in
probably
the same one, if we have to change the location, then the meetings just become special meetings, which is fine. You just have to be very thorough in your agenda.
Right.
But I do think you have to list the location along with the dates.
Yep.
When you submit it to the town clerk.
Yep.
And then we have Zoom. I hope.
The police station meeting room will probably accommodate this group, but outside people use it on the nights that I think one of the political parties meets there on the night that we meet, so that's not available to us. But
Rick, 3 of family members of mine have the COVID, and I'm really nervous about meeting in person. So as long as we have a Zoom option, I can do that.
mm-hmm. All right. Anything else?
I would like to say something real quick.
Sure.
My name is Brendan Crowley. I'm an intern with the Westerly Sun. I was covering this meeting. I was just wondering if Jason, Helen, Sarah, any of you in particular wanted to speak with me for a potential story about this resolution or declaration that you guys wanted to craft. I would be interested in writing a story about that. If any of you, Jason, I see your contact information in the chat already, but if either Helen or Sarah wanted to leave an email or something that I could reach you at, if you are interested in participating in a story, that would be great. Perfect, I see that come in. Also, Rick, I was wondering if I could have a number or an email that I could reach you at for follow-up questions.
Sure.
Either tomorrow morning.
All right.
Mary Ellen, I don't know how to make it say that you can share my contact information too. So
If you click on the chat option.
I just did, but it didn't work. Boy, I got record instead then.
Or if you want to just tell me it, Julia, I'll put it in there right now.
It's Westlook1. It's WESTLOOK, the number 1 at msn.com. I'm one of those properties Rick talked about that may get flooded. So it's Westlook1 at msn.com.
Perfect. It's in the chat now.
Thank you.
It's not going to come up that high.
I don't know.
You may not be able to get out on the Masons Island Bridge, but
No, but there are actually holes in part of our house to let the water out.
one other thing that I just remembered, that there are climate strikes on September 25th. That's the next big push that the youth of the world are doing. The only one I found locally was Salem, and it's only one guy trying to get people to show up with him at the Salem Green. There's no other local ones around here. There's one Hartford, New Haven, 2 in New Haven. Other than that, thank you everyone for coming, and this is probably the longest meeting we've had. So thanks.
We need a motion for adjournment.
Okay, yeah, if you want to do that.
Yes, please. So I can write when this meeting ended down and then I'm
Yes.
done.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good one.
Good meeting, everybody. Good night.